Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. Happy Saturday. Good to see everybody here. And, well, welcome to February, the shortest month of the year, but for many people living in the cold areas, it's the worst. So here's to hoping that it is a mild February and it's not as terrible, and maybe that the Super Bowl has two teams that both mutually lose. So, hey, let's get right into it. Here's our top five going into this week, and I'll pop it up on the screen as always. And if you're on Instagram, again, you're not going to see any of this stuff, so I would highly advise you go on to YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or X, whatever the hell it's called now. That way you can actually see the visuals that are up on the screen. Instagram is just not compatible that way. I figured that out after probably a month or two using it, in which people were telling me that they could only see half of me when I was trying to stream through the platform. So don't waste your time on that. Anyhow, what's our top five this week? The first one, there's an epic collapse in China, Evergrande. We're going to get into that, what that means for us in other parts of the world when it comes to real estate and just the general economy. Then there's this discussion on universal basic income, or what would you do with $1,000 a month? Well, you might be very interested as to where that $1,000 a month goes. If you're a person that is a proponent or an opposer to doing universal basic income. Then we're going to talk about maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel and what that actually means if the world is actually turning a corner and going in the right direction that we want. And then we're going to round out our top five stories with a quick look at probably the world's best CEO right now. I'm saying this half jokingly, in which he sent out a memo in Christmas saying you need to work longer and harder. Let's see how that went. And then the final one is we have to talk interest rates because that just occurred. And what does that actually mean for people in the investing world and money management world? But first, we'll get into our standard LinkedIn question. So thank you for all those people that do like engaging on those poll questions. Hell, I seem to just enjoy it myself, getting people's perspectives. This one ties directly to our fourth story, but would you work for a company when your CEO makes a public declaration that laziness isn't rewarded and working long hours, being responsive, blending work and life is not anything to shy away from? The three options you have are yes, no, no, but I wouldn't quit my job, meaning you'd want to get your package in case they're going to axe you. It's just a very interesting dynamic, especially in 2024, where all we talk about is work-life balance. This seems to be the exact opposite. But love to get people's perspective on that. And then a quick rundown of the markets as, I closed it at the end of January. So at the end of January, we saw all the major indices up, only 1% to 2%, but still up. If they can maintain that pace, that'd be really nice because that's like a 24% growth over year. Bitcoin kind of has been staying flat. The 30-year mortgage is only up 1% versus its original base at the start of the year. Of course, Fed funds and prime haven't changed. So now that is our quick update. Now let's get into the actual top five stories. So our top five story, number one right now, good Lord, China and the epic collapse that has occurred over there. Evergrande Group, which just a few years ago was named one of the most profitable or most successful companies in the world, has filed for bankruptcy. Or actually a Hong Kong court recently issued an order for liquidation of Evergrande. So that's much worse. And this symbolizes the challenges that is going on in China, in which there's a slowing growth in the economy, there's mounting debt, and a shrinking workforce. So these Evergrande properties, half of them are built, but then never finished. And so it's just a really challenging environment out there. And if you think about it, China overall, about 20 to 30% of their GDP goes towards infrastructure like real estate development. So with Evergrande being a massive company, being, again, one of the most valuable companies in the world just a few years ago, going belly up, that could have a contagion effect for the rest of the economy. Is it going to be like a Lehman Brothers back in 2008? Who knows? Luckily, Evergrande is smaller than a Lehman, so hopefully it shouldn't have as big of an effect. But certainly, if you're in the real estate market, if you have things like that, sure, I'm not an investor in China real estate, but there's certainly going to be some form of exposure. There's going to be a lot of equity and debts that ultimately are never going to be repaid. All right, so that's story one. Story two, let's get into this universal basic income discussion. I know there was it Andrew Yang proposed this, and a lot of people called him crazy for the idea of trying to give $1,000 a month to people. But there's several successful European countries that have done this. And in the United States, there's actually been some pilot programs that have been run effectively. In fact, you can also look at Alaska where they already have that too. And in Austin, there was a more recent pilot program. Again, that's going against the idea of people believe if you give people money, they're not going to do anything whatsoever. That has actually turned out to be the exact opposite. In fact, in Austin, what they were doing is with 135 low-income households, they received $1,000 a month in guaranteed basic income. And what they spent with that $1,000 was really utilized for rent and housing expenses. So it wasn't squandered on alcohol, and things that people consider are vices. It really is going for the basic needs of living, and like bills, and even some people actually put the money towards investments for the future to hopefully dig out of this hole. So it's really worth noting that not only did it help these people financially, but we know finances create a lot of stress mentally. And these people's mental health actually increased as well. They only became more anxious towards the end of the pilot program when they know that $1,000 was going away. So it's a very interesting concept of understanding, yeah, the incremental money was actually helping humanity and they were not wasting it. And in fact, the people that received it actually worked longer and harder, which might be a good one for our fourth story of maybe if you pay people more, they might be willing to work longer because, again, they are grateful for people trying to actually help them out. Sure, are there going to be some bad apples in the system? 100%. That happens everywhere. But this is another pilot study that has successfully shown that actually giving people money, with less strings attached, is actually applied towards the right thing. Treating adults like adults, it's a crazy concept. Okay, so let's go into story 3. Story 3 is a picture of the world, but what does that mean? The world is turning. Well, yes, the world turns every single day because that's how the world moves. But when you hear these negative stories of things like Evergrande going belly up and how the contagion effect might impact the economy, a lot of people are thinking, oh my God, it is doomsday. But I remember a coworker, love him to death. And he had such a great line that has stuck with me now, like 5 years later since I have been there. And his comment was, the future is always bleak until we get there. And so hopefully with the latest reading of the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF, they revised their global growth forecast and they increased it 0.2%. Now that's meaningful. That's reaching 3.1% now. And sure, that might look small and incremental, but it signifies a significant boost in confidence for the overall global macroeconomic space. And this is thanks to, well, one, the resilience in the U.S. China actually did some fiscal stimulus that could hopefully help some things. There's been an impressive performance of large emerging markets. So it's actually creating a brighter outlook for us. But something just to be mindful of, that maybe there is a glass half full for all of us right now. And we just need to hold our money, be ready to go, but look for the right opportunities that can ultimately be a larger multiplier versus what we've seen in the past couple of years. So, hey, let's be excited for the light at the end of the tunnel. There's going to be a way to get there. Now, let's go get into hating on one of America's least favorite CEOs right now. And it's tied directly to my poll question. And it comes out of Boston, where I am, in which the Wayfair CEO says people need to work harder and longer hours, and that work-life balance shouldn't really be a thing. People should all be committed to this thing. And it's just really crazy. He put this memo out, think about timing. He put this out right around Christmas. Well, since that time, in 2024, Wayfair has already laid off about 13% of their workforce. And you can, I hyperlinked the article if you actually want to see the memo and everything like that. But it's just really, really bad. When you lay off 13%, well, first, I feel for you if you're one of those people that has been laid off. And I really feel for the woman who had stage 4 cancer, who was fired while on medical leave. So, gosh, hopefully she's got some good attorneys, because that is ridiculous. But anyhow, if you're in a job like that, well, hopefully you can get out of that. But also, we know times are tough. Just having any job could be a really nice thing. Hey, Ashley, how are you? So let's move into our final top 5 story, and then we're going to get into the social media things, and then, of course, the blog thing, which, of course, everybody wants to see, I know. But let me pop up our final one, and that is interest rates. I know it's a shock to be talking about interest rates when we're talking about real estate and money. Who would have thought that? But the first Federal Reserve meeting occurred this past week. And it is, again, we're trying to be glass half full approach here, guys. They didn't take up interest rates, which is a plus. And they still suggested that we are bringing things closer to that target inflation number of about 2%. Since last summer, the Fed funds rate has been about the 5.25 to 5.5 range. That was following 11 straight increases. That started in March of 2022. So finally, that wild run seems to be settling in. And we should hopefully start seeing rates come down in the later half of 2024. What that means for a lot of you that might be investing in real estate, well, as you might know, mega multifamily deals and just mega real estate purchases tend to actually be purchased on a variable loan instead of a fixed rate loan. Why is that? The LTV ratios, or the amount of debt versus equity that you're allowed to have, tends to be higher. So let's say a fixed one might allow for a 60% LTV versus a variable might allow for an 80% LTV. That's why people purchase variable ones, especially on these larger things, because it's really hard to raise $1 million, let alone raise $10 million to do a deal. So less amount of equity that you have to raise makes it more favorable for you as the real estate investor. However, how does that expose you? It exposes you because you need to buy an interest rate cap in order to essentially have the equivalent of a fixed rate interest rate. And interest rate caps have been going absolutely wild since March of 2022, because when there's fear in the marketplace, there's a premium for being able to purchase that certainty. It's like insurance. And so realistically, what might have been, if you had like a $30 million loan, you might have been paying an interest rate cap for, let's say, $5,000 a month to make sure that your interest rate didn't go above 1% versus what you were locking in that day. Those same interest rate caps went from, say, $5,000 a month to $65,000 a month. And that is a significant impact when you're trying to manage your bottom line and stay profitable above the debt service coverage ratio. So that, guys, is why we should still be looking glass half full, because with the approach from the Fed of not increasing interest rates, that does reduce down that insurance cost of purchasing an interest rate cap. Okay, so that is the top 5 stories right there. Let's get into 3 social posts that I have found rather interesting. Love this guy to death. I think he's the best. In fact, Tony Robbins better watch out, because apparently Ed Mylett has now been named the #1 human performance coach in the world. And that comes out of, and if you ever join our book club, one of the books that we have is Ed Mylett's Power of One More. I've read it now, I think, 3 times. It's just awesome. And so highly recommend it. But what I love about Ed Mylett here and what he's saying is that you don't have to be God in order to be able to help people. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And I love that about it, because we all get into our own heads and think that we suck, which, hey, we do all suck in one way or another. But realistically, the truth is that we can still help and create a meaningful impact for people. It's all of our mindset and choosing to believe that we can help people versus choosing to believe that we can serve no basic humanity because we are a failure. So yes, we might be failing in certain other aspects of life, but we can certainly help people, leverage our strengths, help other people get better. That's what I love about Ed Mylett. He's always trying to build people up. There's so much hate out there. Hell, I get a lot of hate myself, but there's so much hate out there. Let's try and stay more positive and try and grow together. That's all he's trying to push there. Let me get into another guy, a lesser known individual, but he is awesome. His name is Jeremy Dyer, based out of Minnesota, my man. He's actually my contact on my franchise side of the business. Really awesome guy. And when I was talking to him yesterday on the phone, I mentioned, hey, I kind of want to give you a shout out during this weekly live session. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. I'm just on my way to my son's hockey tournament. So love this guy. He absolutely crushes it in what he does. He's already got a corporate job, but he also works in the real estate market. And whenever I seem to have a question, this guy is amazing with how quickly he can respond back. And the way he laid it out here in his LinkedIn post is just like, yeah, we're all juggling a ton of things, but you have to be able to prioritize what you are juggling. And if you ever have your performance start to slip, what are the things you're going to cut out of it so you can get back to having that peak performance? And for him, like it's family, it's work, it's being able to coach hockey, etc. And I love that. And for me personally, I know I've been all over the damn place for the past 15 years of wearing different hats. I've now recognized that there's maybe 3 to 5 things at most I will focus on. Everything else, unfortunately, gets thrown to the wayside. If I have time, I'd love to be able to make time for it. But again, it's a way for us to be able to stay above water and not feel like we're drowning. So Jeremy, my man, thank you for that post. It was a great reminder for myself, and hopefully it's a great reminder for others. And then here's this final one. Michael Elefante. If you don't follow him on Instagram, he's a great guy. He's been doing a lot of Airbnb type things. And all of these things I'm going to share, you can find this yourself on, again, his Instagram page. But this is about the creativity in real estate investing. A lot of us have been preconditioned into believing that we can only do something this one way. Realistically, there's so much more we can actually do. And what he's talking about is adjusting who's paying the closing costs. Because by adjusting who's paying the closing costs, you're actually able to save about $20,000 on an example of a $500,000 purchase. All about like who's paying the closing, who's paying the origination. By paying that down, you're actually able to reduce your out-of-pocket expenses. What's up, Soph? Your out-of-pocket expenses. And the rest of the stuff you can then finance. And that is why you want to be able to creatively structure your deal so you're minimizing your initial upfront out-of-pocket expenses and being able to finance the rest. So certainly check that out. Hopefully that can help you as you work through your own real estate deals. And now, so we're going to close that out. Again, so our refresher on our top 5 stories and then our top 3 media things. So the top 5 stories was China's epic real estate collapse. Then we got into what would you do with an increment of $1,000 a month? Shocking. It actually goes towards rent and basic necessities as people discuss about the universal basic needs. We talk about the positive things about the IMF and how the world is turning now that we've hit that 3.1% growth or that 0.2% incremental. Thanks a lot to the resilience of the U.S. economy and China having a good stimulus package in place. Then I talk about a CEO that is very much hated because of work-life balance. And then we closed out with interest rates and what that actually means for us. Even though interest rates didn't go down, it is still a good sign for us in the economy that things are going to be getting better. Then we touched on, of course, Ed Milet, how he's the man, how you can still touch and improve somebody else's lives even if you don't believe you're qualified to do it. My man Jeremy Dyer up in Minnesota, love what he's doing, and he just helps us reprioritize what we should be thinking about. And then Michael Elefante helping us think more creatively in how we close our real estate deals. So now let's get into the blog of last week, which was actually triggered by conversation. Well, it was triggered by the prior blog from the previous week, in which I was talking about going through hell and you have to just keep on going. I love that song. And so this one then was talking about taking extreme ownership. And I don't think there's a better guy that could have talked about this. And it was, again, from another TED Talk, because I love watching TED Talks now. It's one of my 2024 goals, watch a TED Talk a day. There's amazing things you can learn from people that are very inspiring that you otherwise may never have heard of. And this one was from a former Navy SEAL officer, spent 2 decades in there. His name is Jocko Willenick. Pretty scary guy if you see him in the picture. Again, if you're on Instagram, you're not able to see the things that I have going on the screen. If you get over to YouTube, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, you'll be able to find it there. But anyhow, he had a really powerful message, and he's basing it from his experience in war and how war is hell, but hell can teach you a lot of things, like honor, humility, brotherhood, all of those things. And when I was talking about going through hell in my prior week's article, this just seemed like the right thing of taking extreme ownership. Because at any point in life, we're going to go through hell. And we can blame the system. We can blame others. And yes, I'm sure there's plenty of gripes we all could have about wanting to blame others for the things that we are suffering. I've certainly tried to do that myself. But I've recognized that trying to just blame others does absolutely nothing for me. I have to take extreme ownership of the situation, even if it's not really my fault. Because by taking extreme ownership, you actually give yourself more accountability and a belief that things can get better as a result of this. And so why must we do this? Well, it maintains our integrity as a leader and as a human if we take this responsibility. It helps us control our ego so that our ego doesn't control ourselves. That's a really important thing to think about. Ego. Ego is the enemy. There's great books on that. So it gives you an idea of kind of trying to control that ego. And so I kind of want to give some words of encouragement here. Like, you can control your destiny. Don't let these negative consequences shape your future. This is just a interim thing that you're being exposed to and having to experience, but this will hopefully develop some mental toughness to help you kind of get through any of these situations. And yeah, challenges and obstacles, they're going to be there. They're always there. Whether you're just feeling sick one day or you're hit with a $100,000 fine for some reason, like there's going to be just various things that will ultimately pop up that, you need to deal with it. And then the other thing is get yourself a strong support system. Surround yourself with others, and surround yourself with others that will hold you accountable. Like that will ultimately build you, make you stronger. That's why people love, mindset teams or mentorship groups. This is exactly what builds people up. And ultimately, we're just kind of remember that no one else can live your life for you. And waiting for assistance isn't going to happen. Like no one is going to help you. Just remember that. No one is going to help you. All right, that's going to be on you. You can scream and yell all you want, but until you take extreme ownership and recognize that no one is actually coming to save you, because we are all inherently selfish and care about ourselves first. So like, hell, I don't even expect a lot of people to actually watch this or even care about the message. But at the end of the day, the sooner we can all wake up and recognize that nobody is actually going to come and help you, and we take ownership, then our rewards in life will be immeasurable. We will have a more fulfilling life. We will have more purpose. We will ultimately be able to craft the success from our own hands. So good luck, Godspeed with that. I think it's a very important message for any of us to think about, as there's going to be so many challenges that come down in life. And let's close out on a lighter touch here. Thank you, Jocko, for that message, though. But here's our dad jokes. We're now into February. February sucks, right? So I've got 3 jokes for us. Can February march? No, but April may. Yeah, damn right, that was a good one. How many seconds are in a year? 12. January 2nd, February 2nd, March 2nd, etc., etc., etc. And why are people born on February 29th good jumpers? They were born on a leap year. So with that, everyone, I know this has been such a riveting conversation. We'll get this uploaded into YouTube so you can find that in the future. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week.